Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mina and I make videos every Fridays, and today's video is going to be something that I've been thinking about for a really long time. It's an idea that came to me that I haven't done. I haven't seen around on YouTube. If I have seen it, I'll link it down below, but I don't think I've seen anybody do this video because I don't know why, but I thought about it and I thought it would be really interesting to talk about, and I don't really hear a lot about it. This video is books that aren't mentioned on Booktube anymore. If you have watched Booktube for a really long time, I've been watching Booktube since I believe 2014 or 2013, and I've been obsessed with Booktube since. And if you have been on Booktube for that long, or if you have watched Booktube for that long, you know that there were books at that time that people used to talk about non-stop, and they were the thing, and people just raved about them all the time, and people talked about them all the time, and now we don't really hear anything about them. So I'm going to be talking about 10 books that I think were really popular back on Booktube back in a few years ago, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, that nobody talks about anymore and I don't hear anything about anymore. So I just thought this was an interesting idea. If you are interested at all in a part 2 or a part 3, let me know, because I have a lot more books that I think were talked about that aren't talked about isn't as often anymore. So let's get started. I have a list written on my phone. I don't have any of these books. Actually, I have some of these books, but I don't have all of them. So the first book that I think people don't talk about enough that used to be huge on Booktube is Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey. If you know anything about Booktube, back in 2015, 2014, 2013, people were talking about this nonstop. When was this published? This was published in 2013, and literally everybody and their mother talked about this. Like, everybody talked about this book. No matter, you could not watch a Booktube video with this book not being mentioned. It used to be people's favorites like series. People used to look forward to the release of the new books every year, and I read the first book and I gave it 4 stars, but really I really didn't enjoy it. So I read it in July of 2014. There's like 4 waves or 5 waves. The first wave brings darkness, the second wave you can escape, the third, the unlucky survive, and then the 4th wave comes around. And I really didn't understand a word of this book. I read it when I was really young. I think I was 17 when I read this book, and I really didn't like it. I pushed myself to finish it by just like skimming the pages, and I really didn't understand a word of what it was talking about. It's like there's waves and people die, and it's all this craziness that's happening in this world, and it's obviously dystopian because that's all we used to read in 2014 is dystopian YA fiction. And yeah, I really didn't like the series. I didn't go on with it. I just read book 1 and I moved on, but I read it because of the hype that was on Booktube, because everybody and their mother was talking about this book. When I tell you, I'm not even kidding. Everybody was talking about this book series, and I'm kind of glad I didn't continue, but it's just so funny that it used to be so many people's favorite book and book series that now you don't really hear anything about it, and nobody really even mentions it. I don't think I've heard it mentioned in a Booktube video in like years. So I don't know if something happened with Rick Yancey, or if he's problematic, or if the book series is problematic, but it's just so funny that people were talking about it nonstop, and then they like stopped talking about it completely. Just like one day it stopped being shown in Booktube videos. The second book series that used to be really popular on Booktube is The Maze Runner by James Dashner, and this is the book that gave me the idea to make this video, because I was watching The Maze Runner actually 2 nights ago with my sister, and I remembered that you could not watch a bookshelf tour or a Booktube video without the Maze Runner being in there. And I read all 3 books. Apparently there's 4, but I read all of the first 3 books in the series, and I didn't really enjoy them. To be honest, they were really slow, and they were so informational. Like, there was so much information dumped in a page. Like, there was so much description, and when there's a lot of description in books, I just seem to like skimming the page because I just can't be bothered to read about a wall for 45 pages, you know. And I didn't really enjoy it. I think I gave it 3 stars. I don't even, let me check when I read this because it's been a while. I read it in June 13th, 2014. So right after I read Rick Yancey's The Fifth Wave, I read the Maze Runner trilogy, and obviously I checked it out from the library and I read it because if I had bought it, you would know that I got rid of the physical books. Yeah, if you don't know what The Maze Runner is about, it's about this boy. His name is Thomas. He wakes up in this elevator thing that's going up, and he like wakes up and he doesn't know anything, and he's in a maze, and there's runners and there's grievers, and like they can't go out at night and they have to be safe, and it's a dystopian. It's a YA dystopian. It was really popular. Everybody and their mother had it on their bookshelves. I wasn't really interested in it because, like I said, it had a lot of description, and I just don't like descriptive books, and I read all the first 3 and I just didn't continue on afterward. It's not it's not memorable. In my opinion, the movies are better than the books, obviously because Dylan O'Brien is the main character in the books or in the movies, and yeah, I just watched the movie because of Dylan O'Brien, but I really wasn't interested in like knowing anything. I think they did a much better job in the movies than they did in the books, but it was just like a very staple series that everybody had on their bookshelf, and now nobody talks about it, and I don't hear it ever mentioned, and people just don't even like talk about it in like throwback videos or anything. So I just thought it was interesting. The next book that I will be mentioning is kind of mentioned but not as much as it used to be, and it's called The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. If you don't know what The Book Thief is about, it's basically a book told from Death's point of view, and it's set in Germany during the World War, maybe World War II. Yeah, when the Jews were were in the middle of a genocide, and it's written about this girl. Her name is Liesel, and her life, and she's basically, I think she's an orphan, and she ends up being taken in by this family, and they end up hiding a Jewish person in their basement, and she gets to know him, and basically it's just a story of Death's point of view during the war, and it was really, really interesting. It was one of my favorite books of all time when I read it back in the day. It made me cry like a baby. The movie's really, really good, and everybody used to talk about it. This is a lot of people's favorite book, I think, but not a lot of people talk about it anymore. Like, I still see it on people's bookshelves during bookshelf tours and stuff, but it's just not mentioned as much as it used to be, and like every tag, every video, people used to talk about this video, and now not a lot of people talk about it. Not a lot of people talk about Markus Zusak, period. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting. Then we have the Shiver series by Maggie Stiefvater, and it's a book series about werewolves, about this man who turns into a werewolf, and I read it. I think I read all 3 books, and it used to be a lot of people's favorite like series. I think maybe we've moved past like YA dystopian fantasies now, and people just read better books, and people are writing better books. So like if you were to read back on these books, they probably wouldn't be as great as they used to be, because that's like what people were reading back then, and that's what we had available. But in my opinion, there's a lot better series out there now than there was back then, and I think this book series is like, it used to be on everybody's bookshelf. Everybody used to talk about it. Obviously, that's the idea of this video. I keep repeating it, but people used to talk about it nonstop, and people have stopped. Nobody has mentioned it anymore. Nobody talks about it anymore. And I just think that's interesting, because it used to be like a lot of people either hated it or they loved it, and I was one of those people who was just like, about it. So then we have, this is like a general thing. We have Eleanor and Park, or Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, and I have both copies and I've read both books. Eleanor and Park is about this girl. Her name is Eleanor, and she meets this boy. His name is Park, and she's living a horrible, horrible life. Her family sucks, and she finds an outing in Park. And Fangirl is about these twin sisters who end up going to college, and it's their college experience, and it was one of the first books that I've ever read that was about a college girl, and one of them writes fanfics and one of them does not, and that's where Carry On by Rainbow Rowell came from. I don't hear people talking about them anymore, maybe because they're problematic. I think Eleanor and Park, I've heard some things about it being problematic, maybe fatphobic, but I really enjoyed both books when I read them, like back in 2015, 2014, and I thought they were cute and they were adorable, and now nobody talks about them, and they're not on a lot of people's bookshelves. I see a lot of people like unhauling them. I don't think I'll ever unhaul mine, because I have a lot of memories attached to them and when I read them and stuff, but I just think it's interesting that it used to be one of the most popular YA like contemporary books, and now nobody mentions them. So then we have Anna and the French Kiss by Stephanie Perkins. If you know anything about Booktube back in the day, everybody used to read this book. Like, I remember during Booktubeathon, one summer, I think Ariel Bissett recreated a video or like a scene from that book, and it was like the funniest thing I have ever watched, and I love this book. I don't care if people say it's problematic. Okay, hear me out. Books can be problematic. They're not real life. We don't have to believe what they say, okay? If it's entertaining, you can read it. It's just my hot take. That's just what I think. But read the books. I read all 3 of the trilogy. There's like Anna and the French Kiss, Lola and the Boy Next Door, and Isla and the Happily Ever After, or something like that. I didn't really like the second or the 3rd book. I really enjoyed the 1st book, and it used to be on everybody's bookshelf. Everybody used to talk about these books nonstop. Like, it used to be people's favorite contemporary books and like just standalone books, and now nobody talks about them. I have not heard a thing about Anna and the French Kiss other than the fact that it's problematic because of the cheating. But like, who cares? You know, it's a book. If I'm not cheating, you know? Like, it doesn't have to be real life. The next book is If I Stay, by Gail Forman, I believe, and I honestly don't even remember what this book is about. I read it forever ago. Let's check Goodreads. I gave it 5 stars. I read it in 2014. It's about this girl who is like a musical genius, and she has this boyfriend. His name is Adam, and she wakes up one morning and her family and her go out and for a drive in the snow, and they end up getting in a car accident, and she like dissociates from her body, and her body's in a coma, but her soul like is free to wander the hospital, or her spirit, or whatever it is. And basically it's about her choice whether to live or to die or something like that. And I believe there's a 2nd book or a 3rd book maybe. I don't know. I know it's more than 1 book. I really didn't enjoy this book. Hot take. I really didn't like it. I didn't watch the movie. I didn't think it was interesting. I didn't like the writing style. But it used to be so popular. Like, when I tell you, if you watched a Christine Riccio video, it was in there at least once, every video. And I just don't think it's that big of a, like, it's that great of a book for it to be mentioned as much as it was. I really didn't like it. I only read the 1st book, I believe, and I didn't even end up watching the movie. I don't own any copies of it. I don't know why I gave it 5 stars. I used to be afraid to give less than 5 stars to books, but I really didn't enjoy it. The hype was there, but like, in my opinion, the hype wasn't necessary. So Delirium, I believe, by Lauren Oliver, which is one of the most disappointing books I have ever read. And it's disappointing because the idea behind it is so interesting. It's like, what if love was like, or like feelings were like outlawed, and this girl falls in love with this guy, and it's basically her story about that. And they made a pilot of it on Hulu, I believe, and they never got picked up after the pilot, and it was sad because the idea was there, and I think if the show was picked up it would have been really, really good, but the books are just not the move. I really didn't like them. I read all 3 books. Maybe if I reread them now it would be a lot better or a lot worse. I'm not really sure, but I'm not really interested in reading them again. I read them back when they were popular, when they were popping. Everybody and their mother was talking about them, and now I'm just like, no thanks. Like, keep it far away from me. I'm not really interested in reading it. I don't really think it's interesting. And yeah, I just really wasn't in the mood for it at the time, and I'm not in the mood for it now. But it used to be so popular. Everybody had it on their bookshelf. Everybody talked about it in book tags and book videos and bookshelf tours, and now like it's on nobody's bookshelf. Like I said, it's very, very interesting. The Vampire Academy series by Rochelle Mead. When I tell you, this book series was so hyped, and I was so upset because there were so many books in this series and I've read every single one of them, but I just didn't see the hype in them. Like, this video might as well be titled Books I Did Not Like Despite the Hype. This was hyped. It was on everybody's bookshelf. It was on like Natasha's bookshelf. It was on Christine's bookshelf. It was on Katie Tastic's bookshelf. It was on Jessie the Reader's bookshelf, and it was literally everywhere. And I read it and I was like, like, it's not that great. I don't really think it was worth the hype. I watched the movie, which was not great either. But yeah, it's so interesting. I don't think I've seen it on anybody's bookshelf, like not on Hannah's bookshelf. Maybe she has it, but I think most people have probably unhauled it or just like decided that the book series wasn't worth their time. And then lastly, but certainly not least, is the Raven Boys series by, is it by Maggie Stiefvater? By Maggie Stiefvater. So the Raven Boys book series is, oh, if you don't know the Vampire Academy book series, I don't think I told you what it's about. It's about 2 vampire girls who go to this school, this vampire school, and they're strigoi, and yeah, it's really not interesting. It's probably not worth your time. Don't waste your time. The Raven Boys is about this group of people who have many tasks, and the main character, her name is Blue, and she's in this family of like, basically, I haven't read this book for a very long time. Basically her family's clairvoyant, or like they can see the future, and she can't, and she ends up meeting these people, and yeah, she ends up like finding this guy, and her thing is that she can't fall in love with this guy, otherwise her love will be the death of him. And I listened to the audiobooks for this one, so I didn't end up getting them from the library. But this book series used to be on everyone's bookshelf, and it used to be a lot of people's favorite book series, and a lot of people used to talk about it all the time. Like, not a book video went by without people talking about it, and now I don't hear about it. I think I just saw a video of someone literally decluttering it. I think it was Prue's project who decluttered the series, and I was like, wow, remember when that used to be popular? Like, people used to swear by this book series. And I don't think that the hype is unfounded. I think the hype is very much there. Like, it should be there because this book series is very well written, better than her Shiver series. But I just think it's funny that nobody really talks about it anymore, and I used to hear everyone talking about it. Like, every Booktube-a-thon, every bookshelf tour, everybody used to talk about it, and now nobody talks about it. And I just thought that was very interesting because I think it's one of the good series that we got in those years. So yeah. But yeah, you guys, on that note, that concludes this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I had so much fun filming it. Let me know down below what other books you think were talked about often that aren't talked about anymore at all. And let me know down below if you want a part 2 because I can make that happen. But yeah, that concludes this video. Thank you so much for watching. Always remember to keep your head, heels, and standards high and to treat people with kindness. And I'll see you guys again next week with another video. Bye, you guys.